Anthony is part of the Facebook group, the Four Seasons Motown Unreleased and Rare Tracks, writes in every day to that Facebook page, which is owned and run by Ken Charmer. And if you're interested, join it. You'll learn so much from Anthony's writings. There's also other people that partake and share memorabilia. Ken, who's an expert on the Four Seasons recordings, especially the unreleased tracks. So it's a great Facebook page. Also, Anthony participates in Jam and Java with Robbie Robinson every Monday night at 7 p.m., which also appears on YouTube. Also, Anthony was very instrumental in getting getting Robbie Robinson to do a Four Seasons on Saturday, which is also now on YouTube on MowestChameleon. Also a great show. Want to thank you for that, Anthony. But let's get back to you and your first Four Seasons concert. I really want to hear about that, and I think some of the fans out there also. So how did it come about back in 1964? Oh, and if you want to start off by sharing your first experience hearing the Four Seasons on the radio.
Sure. Very good, George. And thanks for that wonderful introduction.
You're welcome.
You repeated it just as I wrote it for you. Thank you.
Oh, perfect.
I'll start with my first experience. I think I may have put this in one of my Facebook posts, but it goes back to the summer of 1962. Probably it was late August or very early September. It was a hot day, and I was in my backyard in Belleville, New Jersey, the official headquarters of the Four Seasons, of course.
Oh, yeah.
And I was cutting the lawn, and I was finished, and it was hot. I was kind of dry, so I went down to my basement to get something to drink. And as I usually did when I went inside, I turned on the radio. Of course, this was the old style electric plug-in, square box type radios with like the sundial. You spin around until the static stops and you can get a clear station. But I usually listen to WMCA or WABC or WINS. Those were the three sort of young people's rock and roll type stations. So I think it was on WMCA. So I'm going over to the refrigerator to get something to drink. And as I'm walking over, I hear this sound. And I sort of stop in my tracks and I say, "What's that?" So I head back toward the radio, and I stood in front of that radio and I'm listening. And I say, "I've never heard anything like this before." Amazing. It was Four Seasons with Sherry. I said, who is singing this? And the song ends and the fellow says, "That's Sherry by the Four Seasons." I said, "I've never heard of this group before. That's great." I spent the rest of the afternoon searching all the other stations, seeing if I could hear it again. And then the very next day, I headed down to the local record store and I bought it, took it home, and I just played it over and over again. So, it was as they say, love at first hearing,
And Anthony, that experience that you just shared, there are so many people that I have talked to their first time hearing Sherry. And I think it's pretty much like Bob Gaudio, the writer of that song, has described it. It was a kind of song that just pulled your ears back and caught them.
I know, it was so different. Whoever heard a sound, like that, persisting through the entire song, and with the backup. Oh yeah, I was hooked. So from then on, I was a dedicated, devoted Four Season fan. Bought all their records. Now, of course, in those days, you didn't have all the means of communication that you have today. So, you didn't get a lot of information or hear a lot. You really was pretty much either the newspaper or you would hear something on the radio. So, of course, I would hear the records being played and I would buy them. But I didn't really, and they didn't have all the publicity about concerts. And concerts weren't that common, really.
Right.
So I really didn't hear about any concerts. And then I noticed that my family every summer went to Asbury Park, New Jersey. That's where we went for our summer vacations for 2 weeks. And on the boardwalk, there was this, what they called Convention Hall. It was a building that the boardwalk went through, and there were various arcades and restaurants and stores. And there was also this auditorium where they had concerts. And the auditorium, the building, went out from the convention center and was actually over the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean. And I noticed they started in the early 60s, they started advertising these concerts, rock and roll concerts. And I noticed that this one year, 62, the Four Seasons were going to be there. I said, oh, I got to get tickets, got to see the Four Seasons. So I did. Now, my parents at the time were not big fans of rock and roll music, so they weren't really interested. I was 14 years old. So
you were a young guy.
Yeah, I couldn't drive myself.
Yeah.
No, that was 62 when I was 14, when I first heard the Four Seasons.
Oh,
But
okay.
this concert was 64. It was 2 years later. So I was 16, but in New Jersey, you couldn't drive. The driving age was 17 at the time. So, but my aunt found out that I wanted to go see this from my mother, and she volunteered to take me. And it turned out that she had gone to high school with Frankie Valli. She knew him from high school, Central High School in Newark, New Jersey.
How interesting.
Yeah. I think he dropped out after the second year, she told me. And I don't know.
Okay.
I don't even know if she finished. Probably, I don't know if she finished. But
Yeah.
anyway, definitely told him she had gone to high school and knew him from high school. So I said, oh, great. So we drive to Asbury Park. We go there. We're sitting down. The concert. I clearly remember the tickets were $3, and
Okay.
the Four Seasons. It was a Dick Clark Cavalcade of Stars.
Okay.
Yeah, Dick Clark sponsored it. Cavalcade of Stars, and the Four Seasons were the headliners.
Right.
And the besides the Four Seasons was Ruby and the Romantics, of course, who did Our Day Will Come. There was a Bobby Goldsboro who later did that song. Was it Honey?
Honey, yes, huge hit.
Yeah, at the time he had his hit at the time was See the Funny Little Clown. I remember.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
right.
And the Chiffons were there. He's So Fine, and there were a couple. The Patty and the Emblems and Jimmy Soul. His big hit was If You Want to Be Happy for the Rest of Your Life. Never.
Yeah, right.
That was his song. So there were several acts. $3. That was how much it cost. So finally, when the Four Seasons come on, but they were so better than all these other acts. I mean, it was not even comparable, really.
Right. And Anthony, and if I may interject.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Four Seasons were the headliners, so of course they came out last.
Right.
At that time, were they the only actual playing band?
Yes, that's right. They were the only ones. The other groups just came on, sang their songs, and none of them had any instruments.
Okay.
I guess obviously there was a house band.
Right.
When the Four Seasons came on, they had Nicky with his good, bass guitar, Tommy lead guitar. There was Bob was standing behind his organ, and they had a drummer. That was it. And there were a few speakers, small, by today's standards, they were small.
Who was the drummer at that time, Anthony?
Well, it was Ronnie Roach, because I didn't know that, but he introduced him. He said, and he goes, we finally got, in the last year, we finally got our own steady drummer, Ronald Roach, and he introduces. So here's the funny thing. So the guy, I'm sitting there, and there's an older man sitting next to me. And when Frankie introduces Ronald Roach, this guy sort of gives me the elbow, and he goes, that's my son.
Oh my God!
Ronald Roach was his son.
How interesting is that?
Kind of interesting.
Yes.
But I was simply amazed once they started out with Since I Don't Have You, then did their hits. And I think they closed with Ragdoll because this was just after Ragdoll had been the #1 hit, you know. So
Okay, so this probably was like August, September of 1964 then, right?
yeah, right. It was like
Oh, okay.
September. It was either late August or early September of '64. It
Oh,
was
wow.
just after, you know, the great success of Ragdoll, and you know,
Yeah, huge year for the Four Seasons.
everyone went
And
wild
yeah,
when they.
and to think, Anthony, if I may add, by the time you saw them August, September, the Four Seasons had only been on the scene for 2 years.
Yeah, 2 years. That's right. Just
Yeah.
and but I was amazed how well they sounded. It, you know, to my ears, it was pretty, you know, obviously it didn't have the great fullness of the sound, but it was really a great reproduction of the record. You really couldn't tell that much of a difference.
Right,
Just,
right.
you know, just with them standing behind their stand-up mics and, you know, the speakers that were there. It was really, I thought they were fantastic. And even my uncle said, "Oh yeah, they were really good. I'm surprised they were really good."
Wow. Yeah,
So
I mean, you're talking four individuals playing their own instruments and providing all the vocal parts and just
yeah,
bringing that sound live.
yeah. So yeah, so when the box set did come out, there's that one bonus track that was gotten from Tommy DeVito's cassette, and they I guess remastered it, and they have it in the box
Right.
set. And it has Since I Don't Have You and Cry Myself to Sleep, I think, and Dawn, and there's one other now which I can't remember.
There's yes. There's another song
Yeah,
on
but
there.
those, you know, that was taken from a concert in 1964. I don't know which one, but that was as close to, you know, the live sound
Wow.
as that I could say, you know.
Right, right. And if
Like,
yeah, and if I may just add, if there's any first time viewers watching this, the box set that Anthony's referring to is a box set that came out in June of 2023. It's a 44-45 CD set and the vinyl album of the Genuine Imitation Live Gazette released on mono for the first time. And one of the individuals responsible for that that's involved with the Four Seasons on Saturday is Mr. Ken Charmer. And we owe a lot to him. But anyway, Anthony, I just wanted to add that that's the box set that you're referring to.
right. And has that one of the 44 CDs has that particular group of songs
Right.
taken from Tommy DeVito's personal archives, a cassette that he had saved from.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, because I mean, there aren't, if any, very many, if at all, live concerts of the Four Seasons
No,
from
that
62, 3, 4, 5, or even
no.
6.
The first one was also from a concert in 1964 in Clearwater, Florida. It was recorded by someone in the audience on a tape recorder, and
Wow.
apparently was then sent to this person who then put it on YouTube, and it's been on YouTube for several years. And again, it's that same set list that I heard, and at least
Wow.
the songs that Tommy DeVito. But I mean, it's the only you wrote a comment. I commented on it. I think you commented on it
Yes.
under the YouTube video. But the sound quality obviously is not optimal. It was from the
No.
on just some, you know, tape recorder of the day in
Right.
1964. So,
Yeah.
but that was the only one we had. And then there's Tommy DeVito's, and that's really it as far as live
That
recording. There are those videos that were taken from TV shows. The
right. Like the
the on
Steve Allen
Broadway,
show, like
yes,
that.
Steve Allen on Broadway tonight.
Yeah.
A couple of others, the Red Skelton show. Not, but those weren't the. Let's see, that the Red Skelton one was
That
not
was
the
like
original.
67.
Yeah, that had Joe Long. Yeah,
Right, right.
the
But the
Steve
four
Allen.
original with Nick Massey, there
Yeah.
isn't very many out there. And just
Oh,
about every day I do a search because you never know what's going to
that's
pop up
right.
on YouTube.
There was the Ed Sullivan show where they sang "Big Girls Don't Cry." That was the only. There's just those, just a hand, not even five, just really.
Yeah,
Bridget,
yeah.
or see, they didn't really have the technology, and they really just didn't think of it, I guess, to be tape recording these things.
Right.
Or video.
Exactly. But
Yeah.
with you attending that concert August, September of 1964, what was the reaction of the audience to this
Well,
relatively new band?
yeah. Well, now this was Asbury Park, New Jersey. So
Okay.
the Four Seasons were all from New Jersey. And of course, uh, now in retrospect, we know, I didn't find out until a little later, that they were originally the Four Lovers before
Right.
they became the Four Seasons. And the Four Lovers were a very popular bar, neighborhood bar and nightclub act in Newark and the surrounding area. They played in all of the, I don't know, we'd call them nightclubs today. Most of them were just sort of glorified bars. And
Right.
they performed in and around the Newark area. So they were actually very well known. Then they became the Four Seasons. So a lot of the people in the crowd were familiar with them from being the Four Lovers, although,
Oh, okay.
although
Okay.
the
Now, of
design was
course,
different.
that in that part of the country, that probably would have been the only area familiar with them. Am I correct?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, most
yeah,
likely. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
They
that is
weren't nationally known, I don't think.
right. So anyway,
They got a
how
very good reception. And
good?
now people don't, not that they don't believe me, but they find it interesting that after the concert was over, all of the performers actually came out on stage, and you could go up and talk to them and get their autographs. Well,
Wow.
I don't think, they don't do that. I don't remember the last time I went to a concert where they did that. Now,
Yeah.
even for a while, they used to have these meet and greet where you could, if you paid extra, you could go backstage and meet the performers. But I guess after COVID, they don't even do that hardly anymore.
No,
If
it's
at all.
it's a lot tighter now.
Yeah, yeah.
So
But
so
that's
did
what
you
they
meet
did.
any of the performers?
Yeah, well, my aunt said, "Oh, let's go. I know Frankie. Let's go talk to Frankie." So
Oh, wow.
she grabs my hand and she finds Frankie. And as soon as he saw her, he goes, "Oh, I know you. We went to high school together." Yeah.
Oh my God, look at that.
Yeah. So they talked for a while. He talked. I don't remember. I probably didn't say too much of anything, but he had their photographs, and he signed it, handed it to me. He said, nice talking to you, walked away. And then I went and saw Bob Gaudio. I don't think I said too much to him, but he gave me the autographed picture, and Nick Massey. But
Wow.
Nick Massey's over the years, his autograph has faded away. You can't even see it
Oh,
anymore.
really? Oh,
Yeah.
that's too bad.
And I don't recall seeing Tommy DeVito, so I don't think I did, but those
Yeah.
three did.
So you got to meet Nick Massey, Bob Gaudio, and Frankie Valli, and get their autographs.
Right. And I still have, that's the only time I've ever asked for an autograph from anyone.
Really?
Yeah. And I kept them all these years, as well as the program. I got the program.
Wow.
And I've kept
Wow.
them all these years.
Yeah. What an experience. Now,
It was very good.
yeah. Now after watching that great concert with all those performers and the Four Seasons, when were you able to catch another concert of the Four
Oh,
Seasons
well,
after that?
they appeared yearly then at Convention Hall in Asbury Park for the next, I don't know how many years, but through the rest of the 60s, they definitely appeared there, and I went to see them every year until
Oh,
and then 69, I left New Jersey. I went to medical school in Philadelphia, so I didn't go back
oh,
to
good for
conventions.
you.
But fortunately, the Four Seasons were very popular in Philadelphia too. And
Yes.
every year that I was in medical school, they appeared somewhere in Philadelphia. So I went and see them every year in Philadelphia as well. And then
Oh, that is so nice.
I left Philadelphia and I went to Pittsburgh, and they pretty much came to Pittsburgh, maybe not every year, but quite frequently, regularly. So I always
Yeah,
was able to see them throughout my time in Pittsburgh as well.
right.
I did,
That
I
is
did meet
interesting.
Frankie. They had a charity softball game one time when they were appearing at some a local place in Pittsburgh. So I made a point of getting to the softball game, and Frankie was the pitcher. And when he wasn't pitching, he would just stand on the sidelines there. So I went up to him. I start talking to him, and yeah, he was answering me, but I noticed, and it didn't dawn on me right
Yeah.
away, but it seemed he took a while to answer questions, and I thought, well, maybe he's just, not really that interested in what I'm talking about, or he has other things on his mind. I mean, he was very polite, answered the question, but he just seemed to take time. Then I said, oh, nice talking to you, Frankie, thanks. I walked away and I'm thinking, oh, he's deaf in one of his ears. I wonder why. He probably was having trouble hearing me. Uh,
That may have been the problem, or
yeah,
with the hearing aid by the time the
yeah,
sound transmitted.
yeah.
Oh, I see. That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So when was the last time you saw Frankie Valli in the Four Seasons in concert? Was that
Well, just this past April 20th
okay?
here in Pittsburgh. So
Wow. So you have about almost 60 years of watching this band from the
yeah,
very early days as the Four
19,
Seasons to
yeah,
what they evolved to today
60
with
years.
Robbie Robinson
It's
leading the band.
60 years. So
Yeah.
I've seen, I wouldn't, I've seen a concert. I don't, some people see like 2, 3 concerts per year. I unfortunately didn't really have the time to be, traveling all over to do that.
Yeah,
But
well, I'm sure with being in medical school and
yeah,
your
yeah,
career and all, I'm sure kept you
yeah.
busy.
I was lucky to take a vacation once a year.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
but I saw them, almost every year
yeah.
in concert. So I probably seen them about 50 times, something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. Now, how did you get to know Robbie Robinson over the years? Who has been the longest for season? I believe what, 44 years, 40, or no, 46 years, right?
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah.
only
How
I
did you get to know him?
well, obviously I knew him just to, see him in concert. And of course,
Right.
Frankie always introduces him. And he's been with Frankie so long. So every time you went to see a Four Season concert, he was there. Or every time you would see them on TV or a video, there's Robbie.
Yeah.
But actually, I didn't actually ever contact him or communicate him until I don't know, until I got involved with Facebook and
Okay.
the Four Seasons on Saturday. So I start
Oh,
messaging him and asking him questions. And he would not always, but most of the time he would answer them. And and then when we
very
start
nice.
then when we start having guests on I asked him if he would want to be a guest, and he said sure. And then so they were coming to Pittsburgh, and I messaged him. I said, well, I'm going to be at the concert. Can we meet? And he said, sure. And he met me before the concert. He said, I'll meet you in the vestibule, the waiting area. And
Right.
I was waiting there with the crowd, and the door open, the door from the actual theater area opens, and Robbie comes walking through. So I walk up to him and he goes, I said, are you looking for someone? He goes, I'm looking for Anthony. Anthony. I said, well, you found him. And he goes, well, let's go find some place to sit. So we went off and found some place to sit. And he like spent about a half an hour talking to me, maybe more. I thought he was going to like say, oh, 5 minutes and I got to go. I got to get
You're
ready.
right, right.
He spoke to me for about 5 minutes, and we've communicate, and he agreed to be on the show, and we sort of have communicated ever.
Yeah.
And of
And,
course, now with his show, and you can chat with them. You put in your little chat,
oh,
right?
right, yeah, with his Jam and Java. But
Yeah,
but when I was so fortunate to be part of that Seasons on Saturday with Robbie Robinson. He was so generous with his time.
Yeah.
I think the entire program is well over an hour and a half.
Yeah, I was really impressed, as I said, when I met him personally at the theater. I thought, he was going to be in a rush and he'd say, I got
Yeah.
to get back and do, but no, he was very patient, very relaxed, just sat there and I asked
Yeah.
questions, we chatted, etc. And then I met him again this past April. Uh, I said, I messaged him. I said, I'm going to be at the concert. He says, oh, okay, we can meet again. So I was talking to their sound man, that Jim Redford. No, his name is Redford. They call him Redford, but his name is Jim Sanders. He was at the back of the theater with all the sound equipment. So
Oh,
I was talking to him, and then this really great Four Season fan, what's his name? Bill. Oh, that's terrible. I've forgotten his name. Bill Landowski or something.
okay.
He chats with Robbie as well.
Oh, okay.
He like goes to
Okay.
multiple concerts every year. He travels all over. He's from Cleveland. He drove
Yeah.
to Pittsburgh. He stayed overnight in Pittsburgh, and I met him in the lobby too. And this other fellow, Matt Barber, who's a very big Four Season fan, and we met and we were talking. Then we were,
That's right. Yes,
yeah,
I had the pleasure of meeting Matt Barber.
yeah,
Oh God, Anthony, it was back in 96, 97. Him and his dad were in Los Angeles on a trip,
yeah,
and they stopped by my place to meet my wife and kids. And oh, again, I think he was 14 years old. Oh, and his dad was a radio disc jockey.
yeah.
And we just had a nice visit. And Matt is grown into be such a nice young man,
And
great
he's a
singer,
singer. Yeah,
entertainer.
he's a singer. Yeah. So I
Yeah.
really have to apologize to Bill. I know I'm messing up his last name. It's not Landowski, but it's something like that. But we met in the lobby. We started talking to that Jim, Redford, Jim Sanders, I think is his real name. And then,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then Matt Barber comes up to us, and he's and he knew Bill and Redford. And he looks at me and he goes, "Oh, I know you. We've met before, haven't we?" And I look at him and I said, "I don't think so." He goes, "Oh yeah, I swear I know we've met before. You're very familiar. I know we've met before." So okay, we're talking, and all of a sudden he goes, "Aha!" He goes, "You're on Four Seasons on Saturday. That's where I've
He
seen you."
recognized you, huh?
Yeah.
Quite
Now
the celebrity, Anthony.
it's funny because that their sound man, when I first went up to him, he said the same thing to me. He goes, "Oh yeah, we've met before, haven't we?" And I know whoops, I lost you. What happened? I came back. I
Oh,
I didn't want to push this button because I thought it would turn the whole thing off, the X button at the top. But I took a chance and pushed it and it came back on. Isn't that
okay.
odd? That's really odd.
Perfect. Okay, great, great. Yeah, and for those watching, again, the MowestChameleon YouTube channel, you can catch all those Four Seasons on Saturdays. And
Right.
that channel is owned by Ken Charmer, who
And
posts
Charlie.
a lot of great Four Seasons material.
Yeah,
But
any fan of the
anyway,
Four
Anthony,
Seasons
so throughout throughout your 60 years of going
fandom.
to Four Seasons concerts, were there any other band members you were able to meet?
Uh, let's see. Any other band members meet on a personal basis, you mean? No, no, not
Yeah.
really. Of course, now they're not band members, but it's personal.
Hmm.
Coming from Belleville, I don't think I've actually, maybe I told the story originally, but um, coming from Belleville, there were the Four Seasons that they hung out, you call hang out. They hung
Yeah.
out in Belleville. That was Tommy DeVito lived in Belleville. That's where he was born and lived and grew up. And Frankie was from Stephen Crane Village. That's where he lived. And
Hmm.
although Stephen Crane Village was part of the Newark public housing, it was a public housing project. He always says, I grew up in the projects, and he did. It was a public housing project
Right.
for low income people.
Correct.
And my grandmother lived there, and
Oh.
And although it was the Newark, it was really in Belleville. It was in what's called I don't know if you ever hear Frankie or the Four Seasons referred to Silver Lake.
Yes.
It was the Silver Lake section of Belleville. I have no idea why it was called Silver Lake. It's in Newark, New Jersey. Newark,
Okay.
Belleville, New Jersey. There's no water, no lake anywhere around it, and
Oh,
certainly no silver.
okay.
But the Silver Lake was the almost 100% Italian area of Belleville.
Okay.
It was right on the border with Newark, the Italian sort of the North Ward, kind of the Italian neighborhood of Newark.
Got
So,
it.
and that's where the Four Seasons, Tommy lived there, Frankie lived there, and they hung out there. And so, you heard all this talk about the Four Seasons. But in addition, there were other people Bob Crew grew up in Belleville.
That's right.
He,
That's right.
he
Did
went to, yeah,
did
he
you
went,
ever have the opportunity to meet Bob Crew?
no, I think he was long gone. He wanted to go to the big time. So he went off to New York.
Yeah.
But he went to the number 10 high school in Belleville. They numbered the schools, not the high
Oh.
school, number 10 grammar school. They just used
Oh, okay.
number 1 through 10.
Right,
And
right.
the grammar school in my neighborhood was number 10, and that's where he went. I didn't go there. I went to the Catholic school, which was in Silver Lake, which was St. Anthony's.
Oh,
And actually Frankie's brother, who at that time was called Robert Castelluccio, was a grade behind me.
oh,
And
really? Bobby Valli.
now he's Bobby Valli. And I remember when he started singing in the local area around Newark. But he sort of persisted all these years and
Yeah,
still is
yeah,
a singer. Uh,
yeah.
but so a friend of mine from Belleville, we got together. We both sort of, in those days, all the groups. So just like now, everyone wants to be in a band and a group. So we got together. He played the guitar and he could sing, and I would write songs, and we would go around and we try to get people to listen to these songs.
Yeah.
And and my friend, he was one of the what's the word? I don't want to use he was very nervy. He had a lot of nerve. It was
Mhm.
not above him to approach people and do and say anything to them. So
Right, right.
we would go and try to get people to listen to our songs. And in Belleville, there were a lot of people in the music business.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
now, of course, people don't know this person as well now, but Connie Francis, at the time, she was the number 1 female singer in the world.
And I am, and I'm familiar with her because of my mother.
Yeah,
I am just so surprised she is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of
I
Fame.
know.
Connie Francis. What?
Great singer. Where the boys are, Mama.
Yeah, and I mean, she was huge in the 50s, right?
Oh, yeah. She was the number 1
And
female singer in the world,
right, and
at the
again,
time.
in the rock and roll vein as far as music.
Yeah, yeah. You wouldn't call her a big rocker, but she was just a great singer. Great singer.
Right, right, right,
Popular
right.
song. But
But a
she
few of
lived
her
in
songs
Belleville.
did have that rock beat to them.
Yeah, yeah. She lived in Belleville, New Jersey, and went to
Right.
Belleville High School. And
Wow.
so my friend, she lived, it was like about a 10-minute walk from my house. We went there, it was Forest Street, but knocked on the door, but no one let us in. They wouldn't let it.
Ah,
No one even answered the door. I later found out that her father, and she even was exceedingly strict and
okay.
would not let her sort of you know associate with anyone. People.
Right, right.
He was
Yeah,
very highly protective, highly
yeah,
protective.
yeah,
I don't know if you
yeah.
ever read that story. Is she dated Bobby Darin, and her father didn't like Bobby Darin and scared him away with a gun.
Yep. I just finished reading his book about 4 or 5 months ago. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So we struck out with that, but as it turned out, Mike Petrillo, who wrote Tell It to the Rain with Chubby Cifelli, lived in Belleville. He lived what's called in the Valley. It's sort of the lower area of
Yeah.
Belleville and on Geralman Street. So my friend said, well, let's go talk to Mike. He wrote Tell It to the Rain. You know,
Yeah.
he'll have some influence. So
Yeah.
we walk up to his knock on the door, and this older woman, his mother, answers the door. So this was the summer of 68, I believe.
Oh, wow.
68. Yeah. So imagine this. You knock on the door, she opens the door. She doesn't, two strangers, these two young kids.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh, hello. Yeah, what do you want? We say, oh, we're two aspiring songwriters. We'd like to talk to Mike. She goes,
Yeah.
oh, okay. Come on in.
Oh, wow.
Come on in. And she yells upstairs, Mikey,
Like,
Mikey, there's two kids here to see you. Mikey comes down, and he obviously had just gotten out of bed. I mean, it was obvious. You know, his hair was all messed up.
yeah.
He's wearing like pajamas. And she goes, oh, he was out late last night. I had to get him out of bed. And we felt bad, but,
Yeah.
and he goes, yeah, I played a gig late last night. I played drums. The guy played drums too.
Oh,
Although
wow.
he was mostly a sax player. He had played sax on some Four Seasons songs. But
Interesting. I didn't know that.
oh
Interesting.
yeah. I think he played sax on Opus 17, some of their early stuff as well. Actually, he even was an arranger for them before Charlie Colello, but he couldn't really he couldn't do the arrangements that Bob Crew sort of wanted. So
Right. Right.
eventually Charlie Colello
Yeah.
took over. But he had written that song, Tell It to the Rain. So he said, so we told him, oh, we'd like to get into songwriting. So he goes, oh, okay. And he brought us down in their cellar, which he was using as like his music room, piano, drum set, tables with all papers thrown all around. And, we showed him our stuff, and he actually must have thought it was at least pretty good. And then he goes, wait a minute. He goes, I want to play you guys something. And he sits down and he starts playing on the piano, and then he starts singing. And it was Fox in the Bush. That's what the song was.
Really?
Yeah, Fox in the Bush. He goes, what do you think of that song? After he was done, I go, oh, that was a good song. I really like it. He goes, yeah, I wrote it, and Frankie's going to record it. This was before
So he played it for you before
recorded.
before it was released by Frankie Valli in 68.
Before it was even recorded.
Wow.
And
Oh,
jumping
Fox in a Bush. That is a great song.
jumping ahead, a couple of months later, I was watching the Mike Douglas show, and Frankie was the guest, and he says, this is a new song. It's Fox. He sang Fox in the Bush on the Mike Douglas show.
Boy, I sure would. I sure would love to see that clip. But
Yeah.
look at. We got off the topic of the concerts, and I'm glad we did, because
you asked me if I met any other of the Four Seasons.
Right. Yeah. No. Like I said, I'm glad we did, and it's so interesting.
Yeah.
Again, you're from New Jersey, and you meeting these people, whether connect.
Oh, you froze there.
Just really, really interesting.
Yeah.
Did your friend that was either writing these songs or in this band, did it go anywhere?
No. We kept going back to Mike's, every so often, and he'd say, write some words to this music, and one time he called up Bob Gaudio, and he didn't actually sing the songs over the phone like the Four Seasons sang Sherry, but he sort of recited the lyrics to the song to Bob Gaudio. But obviously Gaudio wasn't impressed, because he must have said, well, where'd you get that from? And he says, oh, a couple of kids here brought their songs to me. I thought they were pretty good, but the conversation ended shortly thereafter.
Right.
Now
is Petrillo
more important things.
Okay. Now, is Mike Petrillo, is he the one that went on to become a police chief?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Now he was a personal friend of Bob Gaudio's, correct?
Right. They were in when Gaudio quit the Royal Teens, he was I think he got a job in a print shop, but he also, still played music, and he was in a jazz band with Mike
Okay.
Petrillo and Joe Pesci. That was the jazz group they had. Bob Gaudio, Mike Petrillo, Joe Pesci, maybe some other people. And actually, it was Mike Petrillo mentioned to Joe Pesci, why don't you, because Joe Pesci was friends with Tommy DeVito. And
Right.
Mike Petrillo said to Joe Pesci, why don't you tell Tommy that Bob is available? Maybe they'll, would take him on as, a member of the four. Well, there were only three lovers at that time,
Yeah.
that's with the four lovers. And so that's what happened. Joe Pesci then said to
So,
Tommy DeVito.
so it's safe to say that from what you're sharing with us, and it's so interesting, is Mike Petrillo played a role in,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, and getting Bob Gaudio, because they were in that jazz group together.
Yeah, yeah. That
Uh,
that is something else. That is something else.
but we kept going back. I met Chubby Cifelli was there one day, and Mike Petrillo. They would use the term bust your balls. You ever hear
Yeah,
that?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
I think Mike Petrillo was busting Chubby Cifelli's balls. He said, "Oh, these kids are pretty good lyricists. I think some of their lyrics are better than yours. Like, oh, and the stars above."
And this, yeah, yeah. Now, Chubby, is he the co-writer on "Tell It to the Rain"?
Yeah, he was the he. I don't know if he wrote any of the music. I think he for that song he was primarily the lyricist, because
Okay.
at least Mike said, "Yeah, I think their lyrics are better than yours." Yeah, and you can tell the stars above. Wow, those are great
Wow.
lyrics. He was busting his balls a little bit.
I I
But
just I did not know that you knew these two individuals. I
yeah,
had no clue.
yeah, very, not any kind of just that kind of a
Well,
basis.
yeah, I mean,
But
you went to Mike's door and his
yeah,
mom
but
let you in, and
eventually, one day we were down in his basement again, and he's playing some, and then I think we showed him some of the stuff that we tried to write lyrics or expand on the music he gave us, and he looks at us and he goes, "You're in college, aren't you?" And we said, "Yeah, we were both in college." He goes, "I think these guys should stay in college and forget about music."
forget about music. So so
Forget
so
about songwriting. Forget about songwriting. Stay in college. Forget about songwriting. So I always say that was the greatest advice I ever got.
yeah, that that is so interesting, so interesting. And of
Yeah,
course, then I mean, staying in the medical field, you went on to a really fantastic career. But
yeah,
look at Anthony, I really appreciate you sharing these fantastic memories of your first Four Seasons concert, taking us into meeting again. You're from New Jersey, meeting these individuals. I mean, knocking on Connie Francis's door, meeting Mike Petrillo. Did you ever meet Joe Pesci?
no, no, I did
No.
not.
Okay.
He also is from Belleville, but I think he
Yeah.
was. He, I think obviously he was a little bit before my time, and I don't know. Maybe he also was off in New York City with
Yeah.
John D.
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
on other things by the time
Yeah.
I sort of was
Okay.
hanging
Well,
around.
look at in closing, Anthony, is there anything else? Maybe some closing comments? Anything just to
Oh,
finalize this
I could
segment?
probably go on for much longer, but
Well,
I,
and I definitely would like to talk to
yeah,
you some more. I mean, you
yeah,
have some really great stories.
we could expand.
But is there anything you'd like to say to close out this segment, Anthony?
There's one other little anecdote which I find amusing, because you see the show Jersey Boys and then the movie Jersey Boys, and it brings back a lot of things from my youth. So there's the scene where where Frankie goes after they did that car scam, where they
Right.
tend to shoot the guy. So Frankie goes to Tommy's apartment to ask for help, and Tommy is there. He's eating, and there's a woman that obviously like a girlfriend of his in the
Yeah.
with him, and then Frankie knocks on the door, and he tells the girl, "Go answer the door," and she goes, "Well, what if it's your wife?" Right?
Yeah.
Well, we used to play baseball in Silver Lake. We would get together and play baseball, and we played on the, not always, but sometimes we would play on this empty lot across from one of my friend's house. And there was this apartment building that had been built in the last couple of years right next to this empty lot that we played on. And so we would hit the ball, and sometimes the ball would go hit this building. And my friend would say, "Watch out, that's where Tommy DeVito keeps his," he didn't use the word girlfriends, but he
Yeah.
used
Okay.
a slang expression.
So your
Girlfriends.
friend said that's where Tommy DeVito
That's
kept
that's where
his
Tommy
girls,
DeVito keeps his girls, his
which
girl.
I mean that could have been his apartment building because he did own some apartments, right?
Yeah, that was his apartment building. He had it
Oh
built,
wow.
and he stashed his girlfriends there.
Yeah. That
And you would
that
hear
is interesting.
I I I remember one time that this, at the time you sort of passed them off. You didn't really pay attention, but they used to say, "Oh, I heard that Tommy DeVito really got in a big fight. He really beat the hell out of this one guy because he thought the guy was cheating him at cards."
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
Well, I guess being from that area, I mean, you would hear these things throughout
yeah,
the neighborhood, right?
right. Yeah, it was, things you would hear around the neighborhood. And Tommy
Yeah.
DeVito he was actually a big golfer. And
Yes.
it was a hustler, a golf hustler. Of course, he gambled just about anything, really. So
Yeah.
there was it was a public golf course in Belleville called Hendricks Field, and he would hang out there and try to hustle games from get
Wow.
so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
interesting stuff. All these sidelights,
I'm telling you, Anthony, these are some really interesting stories that I think the fans, I mean, are really going to want to hear. Just interesting, and a lot of it comes from especially the play Jersey Boys, which is now reaching its 20th anniversary. But
right.
but it's nice to hear these things from somebody that was from the actual area.
Yeah. When you see the play in the movie, it brings back you say, "Oh yeah, I remember that." Like
Wow.
in the scenes, they had the Silhouettes bar and the Strand bar, and there's the one that's in Point Pleasant. I can't, the name is escaping me now. There's a surf club or something like that. But when I used to take a bus to get to high school. Essex Catholic High School was in downtown Newark, so
Mhm.
you would get a public bus at the corner of your street, and it drive down to Essex Catholic High School. But we used to pass by the Silhouette Lounge where the Four Seasons played.
Wow.
Actually, the Four Lovers. They were the Four Lovers
Yeah.
at the time. But there was this bar not far from St. Anthony's School. It was called the Roxy, and a friend of mine ran it. This friend of mine ran it, and
Uh-huh.
he was friends with the Four Lovers, and then they became the Four Seasons. And the bar was not doing well. I think it was in debt, and the Four Seasons, were nice enough. They did a benefit at this bar, and I remember there was this big sign all stretched all across the building, appearing the Four Seasons on this
And and
bar.
what year would this have been?
I was around 63, I'd say, probably 63.
Wow.
I don't think I don't think it was 62. I think it was like probably 63.
Yeah, yeah. And what I find amazing is the Four Seasons in such a big band, they were playing at these places. But then when you read on the history example, the Beach Boys, they were also playing maybe not so much at these adult type clubs, but at
Yeah,
some of the local high schools and all. And
right.
you hear of pop rock stars today playing these huge places, which eventually Beach Boys and Four Seasons did. But I guess early on in their career, they played wherever
I
they
used to
could.
walk by in Silver Lake, a block away from the school and the church. There was the Bellbrook Tavern, and that's actually, I think, one of the first places where Frankie, where they were the variety trio, or maybe it was the Four Lovers,
Yeah,
asked Frankie to, no, it was the variety trio, in fact. They would ask Frankie to come up and sing, and he would go around.
wow.
He would go around to the back door because he was underage. But
Yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah, yeah,
the Bellbrook Tavern. It was just a small neighborhood bar.
yeah.
And
Wow. Yeah.
most of the places they played at when they were the variety trio, the variety,
Right, right. And
these these were small neighborhood bars.
yeah, yeah. And of course, you talk 62, 63. You're talking rock and roll within the first 10 years. I mean, it was still in its infancy.
Yeah, no, I remember the first rock and roll was like that I was aware of was like 1955 was Bill Haley. Bill Haley and the Comets was the
Oh,
big thing. Rock Around the Clock. That was
and that was a rocker.
1955, and then Elvis Presley. That was really the first that I became aware of. I'm sure there were some rock and roll music
Yeah, yeah,
before that, but that was the first time it really got sort of national attention.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Let me touch on one last thing that I'll ask you a question on.
Yeah.
Um, being the Four Seasons fan that you are, what did you think of the Beatles when they came out in early 64? What were your thoughts on that band? The look, the music, that sound.
Well, I didn't think they were as good as the Four Seasons, of course. I thought they were pretty, I thought they were good. I thought they did good songs. I liked them.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't, obviously, I didn't become hysterical like these young girls,
Right.
screaming and feigning, but I thought they were pretty good. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I bought a couple of records. I
Yeah.
I bought She Loves You. I don't think I bought I Want to Hold Your Hand. I bought She Loves You and Do You Want to Know a Secret? Those were the two Beatles songs.
Oh, okay.
45s. Those are the
Yeah.
two 45s I bought.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I like them.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. Same here. I'm a fan of the Beatles, and um had they and to think Dawn Go Away could have been the Four Seasons fourth number one
yeah,
single.
yeah.
But
That's
with
great.
two Beatles songs on top and two at the bottom, as Bob Gaudio says, Dawn Go Away was not going anywhere,
Yeah.
up or down.
But consider the British invasion really put an end to a lot of American singers' careers.
I'm glad you said American singers, because a lot of people say that the British invasion took out all the American bands. But
Yeah.
which American bands were here before the Beatles, the Four Seasons, and the Beach Boys? Which other American bands, other than, let's say, the Ventures? But as
Yeah.
far as bands,
Well,
which other
all
bands did
those
we
sort of
have in
all
this
those sort
country
of
before the Beatles?
those teen idols, like Faith,
Yeah, yeah,
Yankee
yeah,
Avalon,
yeah,
and
yeah. And
other,
by late 63 or 64, I think those teen idols, all the Bobbies and
yeah.
Johnnies and what have you, they were already dying.
But also
Their
a
their
lot of
style of
the
music.
girl groups too. A lot of the girl groups went by the wayside, and
Right, right. Real
that maybe
real
just
quick.
had one hit song.
Yeah. There you have a lot of music critics that say before the Beatles and after Elvis went into the army, there was that rock and roll was dead, which I
Yeah.
find to be so untrue.
Well, it was pretty at a low. It was at a low ebb. That's
It
for sure.
it was at alone because of the Jerry Lee Lewis situation, Chuck Berry, Elvis in the army. So we had what, from say 59 to say 63, where it okay, but look, the Four Seasons were on the scene. Beach Boys had barely started. But this book, Rock, I don't know if you
But
can
is it
see the title there. Rock and Roll
in
in
Kennedy's?
Kennedy's America, a cultural history of the early 60s.
Oh,
You
I'm
read
not
this
familiar with
book,
that.
and it will give you a whole different perspective.
Where's that available?
We had some really good music here during those years before the Beatles arrived.
Hey, George, that reminds me, you know, when I first became familiar with you is, of course, like you, I would always look for four-season material. And when I discovered YouTube, I discovered that there was four-season videos on YouTube. That was the thing I didn't know anything about. I didn't know what YouTube even was. I didn't know what Facebook was. You know, I was in a busy, medical practice. I didn't have time for any of this stuff. Then I retired, and my wife says, why don't you get a hobby here? Why don't you look at YouTube? But what is YouTube? I don't know what YouTube is. What is Facebook? So I discovered these things for the first time, and I find that you could see four-season, any kind of music video on YouTube. So I would see these four-season videos, and then you'd scroll down and there would be comments. And I noticed every time I looked at a four-season video and I looked down at the comments, there was somebody named Music for All Four Seasons. Music for All Four Seasons. George, Music for All Four. I say, my gosh, every time I see a four-season video, this George, Music for All Seasons has a comment, and it was always the same comment. The Four Seasons were the first American group to write their own songs, play their own instruments, and have a hit before, during, and after the Beatles.
Yeah, that's it.
I have to meet this George fellow.
Thank you for bringing that up, but that is so true. That is so true, and it's not said enough. Sometimes I feel, and this could go on to another show, sometimes the Four Seasons don't get the recognition or the respect they need as a true American rock and roll band.
Right.
But look, Anthony, I want to thank you for your time. I mean, you shared so much, and just really, really interesting. But thank you very much. Okay,
we'll have to do this again sometime.
I would love to. In fact, folks, consider this part one.
Part one.
There will be a part two on some more stories with Anthony and his living in New Jersey. But anyway, appreciate you all watching. Questions, comments will always be respected. If you're not a subscriber, subscribe to George Music for All Four Seasons. And also, don't forget to check out the Facebook page by Ken Charmer titled The Four Seasons Motown Unreleased and Rare Tracks, where Anthony puts a post on every day, and you will learn so much about the Four Seasons Band. But thank you, Anthony, and you take care, okay?
George. Thank you.